Oh yeah, is this working? Oh great. Hey, it's part two. It's James Joyce Ulysses part two here. It's yeah, I didn't really do a good job on the first one. I mean, I would just say I just meant to say make a point that you know for as difficult as James Joyce seems like in Finnegan's Wake and the latter part of Ulysses and the first two chapters, or maybe the first half of Ulysses seems very approachable, very readable. Definitely the first chapter. So the first chapter, the at Martello Tower. What was it called? Telemachus or something. And this second chapter is called Nestor, where he's teaching in the thing. But yeah, let me first go to. I forgot to mention that I have a record, the Ulysses record. It's read by Siobhan McKenna and E.G. Marshall. They read the Molly Bloom soliloquy and also the Leopold Bloom soliloquy. I didn't realize there was a Leopold Bloom, but I guess they're talking about in chapter 13 where he's on the beach and he's with Gertie McDowell, and then the second part of the chapter kind of drifts off into this whole, and you're into the mind of Leopold Bloom, and he's kind of talking. But I was just listening to the E.G. Marshall, and it's pretty good. It's very good. But we'll get to that. I'll I'll keep this nearby because we'll be talking about it when we get to chapter 13. But now we're on chapter 2, which is on page. Okay, so that's still. So yeah, he's in school. So we're kind of back into the. It's very much like the first book, where it seems like he's always in college or in classes or talking to students. So this time, Stephen's the teacher. Stephen's teaching a class history on the Paris victory. The class is not very disciplined. He drills the students. A boy named Armstrong phonetically guesses that Pyrrhus was a pier, and then Stephen calls it a pier is a disappointing bridge. And then he meets, and then he talks about Milton, and there's a little bit about Milton, and then he's like talking to oh yeah, there's one student that stays after, and he's not really that smart, and he does, you know he talks with Mr. Deasy, and who he pays and stuff, and they have a little conversation. So let's read a little bit of this. So the first couple pages is he's he's talking to the class, and they have that riddle. The cock crew, the sky was blue, the bells in heaven were striking 11. 'Tis time for this poor soul to go to heaven. And Sergeant was there. Okay, so let's see. Let's read. This is from page 25. And now his strong room for the gold. Stephen's embarrassed hand moved over the shells heaped in the cold stone mortar, whelks and money, cowries and leopard shells, and this whirled as a emir's turban, and this scallop of St. James, an old pilgrim hoard, dead treasure, hollow shells. A sovereign fell, bright and new, on the soft pile of the tablecloth. 3, Mr. Deasy said, turning his little savings box about in his hands. These are handy things to have, see? This is for the sovereigns, this is for the shillings, sixpences, half crowns, and here crowns, see? He shot from it 2 crowns and 2 shillings. 3.12, he said. I think you'll find that's right. Thank you, sir, Stephen said, gathering the money together with shy haste and putting it all in the pocket of his trousers. No thanks at all, Mr. Deasy said. You have earned it. Stephen Stephen's hand, free again, went back to the hollowed shells, symbols two of beauty and of power. A lump in my pocket, symbols soiled by greed and misery. Don't carry it like that, Mr. Deasy said. You'll pull it out of somewhere and lose it. You just buy one of those machines. You'll find them very handy. Answer something. Mine would be often empty, Stephen said. The same room, an hour, the same wisdom, and I the same. 3 times now. 3 nooses round me here. Well, I can break them in this instant if I will. Because you don't say, Mr. Deasy said, pointing his finger. You don't know yet what money is. Money is power. When you have lived as long as I have, I know, if youth but knew. But what does Shakespeare say? Put thy money in thy purse. Iago, Stephen murmured. He lifted his gaze from the idle shells and the old man's stare. He knew what money was, Mr. Deasy said. He made money. A poet, yes, but an Englishman too. Do you know what is the pride of the English? Do you know what it is the proudest word you will never hear from an Englishman's mouth? The sea's ruler, the sea-cold eyes looked on the empty bay. It seems history is to blame on me and on my words. On hating? Okay. That on his empire, Stephen said, the sun never sets. Bah, Mr. D says. That's not English. A French Celt said that. He tapped his savings box against his thumbnail. I will tell you, he said solemnly, what his proudest boast. I paid my way. Good man, good man. I paid my way. I never borrowed a shilling in my life. Can you feel that? I owe you nothing, can you? Mulligan, £9, 3 pairs of socks, 1 pair of brogues, ties. Corinth, 10 guineas. 10 Guinness? Guineas? No, 10 guineas. McCann, 1 guinea. Fred Ryan, 2 shillings. Temple, 2 shillings. Russell, 1 guinea. Cousins, 10 shillings. Bob Reynolds, half a guinea. Kohler, 3 guineas. Mrs. McKernan, 5 weeks board. The lump I have is useless. For the moment, no, Stephen answered. Mr. Deasy laughed with rich delight, putting back his savings box. I knew you couldn't, he said joyously. But one day you must feel it. We are a generous people, but we must also be just. I fear those big words, Stephen said, which make us so unhappy. Mr. Deasy stared sternly for some moments over the mantelpiece at the shapely bulk of a man in a turban full of bags. Albert Edward, Prince of Wales. You see me as an old fogey and an old Tory, his thoughtful voice said. I saw 3 generations since O'Connell's time. I remember the famine in '46. Do you know that the Orange Lodges agitated for repeal of the Union 20 years before O'Connell did, or before the prelates of your commutation denounced him as a demagogue? Your Fenians forget some things. Glorious, pious, and immortal memory. The Lodge of Diamond in Arras, the splendid behung with corpses of papishes, horse, masked, and armed, the Planters' Convent, the Black North, and the True Blue Bible. Croppies lie down. Stephen sketched a brief gesture. I have rebel blood in me too, Mr. Deasy said, on the spindle side, but I am descended from Sir John Blackwood, who voted for the Union. We are all Irish, all King's son. Alas, Steve said, per vias rectas, Mr. Deasy said firmly, was his motto. He voted for it and put it on his top boots to ride to Dublin from the Ards of Down to do so. La la ra la ra, the rocky road to Dublin. So yeah, I mean, this is a great. I mean, I think this is like the. I mean, there's a whole conversation between Buck Mulligan and Stephen Dallas in the first section, and then you have the classroom where they're kind of talking about history and Milton, and then they kind of had this conversation with DZ. So this, I think, I'm more satisfied by this conversation. It goes on for a while. They kind of talk about some of the things, the kind of politics at the time. They mention Ulster, and then kind of ends. I think this is the chapter they talk about it, where like history is a nightmare I'm trying to wake up from, or something that where this is. Maybe that's in the third chapter, but it goes. Something about it kind of ends. It's kind of important. It's I just wanted to say, he said, Ireland, they say, has the honor of being the only country that never persecuted the Jews. You know why that is? No. And do you know why? He frowned sternly on the bright air. Why, sir? Stephen asked, beginning to smoke. Because she never let him in, Mr. Deasy said solemnly. A cough-ball of laughter leaped from his throat, dragging after it a rattled chain of phlegm. He turned back, coughing, laughing, his lifted arms waving in the air. She never let him in, he cried again through his laughter as he stamped on the gator feet over the gravel of the path. That's why. On his wide shoulders, through the checkered work of leaves, the sun flung spangles, dancing coins. Okay, well, it's. I think out of the two chapters, I think that one's like a lot better. There's a lot more into it. Let's see, and then the mention of Shakespeare. Where's the? Let me see if I can find some Milton and stuff. Oh yeah, for like, weep no more, woeful shepherds, weep no more for Lycidius. Your sorrow is not dead, sunk through to be beneath the watery floor. Huh. So, let's see where we are here. So we got some minutes. So I gotta wrap this up. So, yeah, I mean, if you're a little dismayed by the first chapter where very little happens and there's talking about the rent and stuff, the second chapter has a lot more excitement in it, and it's more realistic, and it's called Nestor. And so that's it for today. We'll be talking about the more experimental chapters coming up, chapter number 3, where the first time I read it, I mean, I read this book and and I have my other original copy. I used to have this blue copy that was the same as this one. This is the one that came, the Gabler edition that came out in '84. So I had a blue copy, which I obviously lost in sometime in New York. But I have the original 34, the Random House or whatever it is, Knopf edition, and the 30 edition, and that has like some of the mistakes. So that's where I read that one, and then so probably the second or third time I read this book, I read this version. I mean, I know there's like about 5,000 corrections, so I thought I'd just mention that. So most people just read this book, this version, the one that's the corrected version from '84. So, I mean, that's almost like 40 years ago now. Okay, so this went on a little bit long, but let me just let's see. Let me see if there's anything else to say. Let's see. Okay, so DZ. Oh yes. Oh yeah. There's a hockey field. Oh yeah. I guess yeah. Stephen rejects DZ's rendering of the past and states history is the nightmare from which I'm trying to awake. That is in that chapter. I just kind of skipped over it. So that's another important. Uh, yeah, it's kind of weird that it must be in the air that Joyce decided to make his main character Jewish in Ireland, and in these three chapters we kind of set it up, because he's Stephen Dedalus kind of represents the Irish guy, the and Bloom is kind of like the outsider, and then they both end up being outsiders because they're not really accepted by the most guys. Like Deasy's like Buck Mulligan is like, or Haynes or Blazes Boylan. Those guys are your average Irish guys, But we'll get more to that later. Okay, so I'm going on, rambling on. Okay, thanks for listening. Now, I'll try to be 10 minutes, but it's a little over. Okay, sorry. Less, even though the chapter's more expensive, there'll be less next time. Okay, great. See you. That was chapter number 2, Nestor.